Hey, what is up, YouTube? Old Guy 379 here, coming back at you with another topic that I think is a very hot button topic in the trucking industry right now, and that is mandatory speed limiters. This is a very hotly contested subject, mainly contested from all of us that are out here on the road every day dealing with traffic and speed differential, which, if you don't know what that is, it's just a fancy term for the difference in speed between vehicles. I'm going to leave my personal opinions on speed limiters to the end of the video, or towards the end, and then I'll kind of discuss that a little bit. Mandatory speed limiters, the government is really trying to push a 65 mile an hour mandatory truck speed limit all over the United States. Right now, sorry, I had a piece of popcorn stuck in my teeth. I apologize for that. These videos are raw. I take them and record them. I don't edit them. I just go as I go. You can see this guy out here trying to flip a U-turn and seeing if he can get close to my truck and hit it, apparently. Anyway, the federal government, again, trying to step in and put mandatory speed limiters on our trucks. And I have to watch this guy while he's backing in because he is not real bright. He maybe needs a speed limiter on his truck. I'm not sure. Anyway, sorry, I keep getting distracted. 65 mile an hour, guys. All over the country, including states where the speed limits are as much as 85 miles an hour. They want every truck to run 65 miles an hour because it's safer and it's more fuel efficient. I have driven trucks with speed limiters that were governed at anywhere from 62 to 70 miles an hour. I have owned trucks that were not governed by anything other than, the RPMs limits of the engine and the gear ratios in the transmission and rear ends. I am not a speed demon. I prefer really to just kind of run along at the speed limit, really close to it, either a couple over or a couple under, and just hang out in the right lane and just do my thing. But there's a huge frustration with these speed limiters, and that's the fact that you get, no matter who sets these up, you can have 17 trucks set at 65 miles an hour top speed, and all 17 of those trucks will go down the road at a little bit different rate of speed, some a little faster, some a little slower. And inevitably what's going to happen is you're going to have two guys trying to pass each other, blocking up traffic for miles and miles and miles. And because we see it every day, it happens all the time. You'll see, and I'm just going to use the two main examples out there, Swift and Knight. These guys, they will get out there to pass another 67 mile an hour truck, and their truck does like 67 and a quarter, and the guy they're passing's truck does like 67 and an eighth. But he's going faster, so he's got to pass. Because he's, just got to. Can't stay in the right lane and stay behind him and let other people go by. He's got to get by. And that's fine. But what that does is it creates a lot of frustration, anxiety, anger, whatever you want to call it, amongst the people that are following all those trucks down the road. Not only truck drivers, but just the general public. And, we have a bad enough public perception as it is, without adding on another layer of, quote, safety. My whole opinion on all this safety stuff that's on these trucks is it's garbage and we don't really need it. From a fleet standpoint, having been in management and running a fleet of trucks and dealing with drivers and things like that, yeah, I can see that anything that you can add to the truck to help the driver is a good idea. in theory. In practice, though, let's face it, forward-facing radars on trucks have not been perfected to the point where they can't tell the difference between an overpass and a stopped vehicle, a tree limb and a stopped vehicle, and then there's times when the forward-facing radar, when your adaptive cruise is on, doesn't see the vehicle in front of you that's going slower, and next thing you know, you're right on top of them. We're not even going to get into the whole, blind side radar and all that stuff. I drive at home, I have a really nice 2021 Subaru Ascent. I had a Dodge Ram 1500. I love that thing, but it got wore out and it needed to go down the road, and my wife was having issues getting in and out of it. So I bought a car that she can get in and out of easy, and it's a nice car. And it has all that garbage on it. It has the lane positioning sensors, it's got the blind spot sensors, the rear parking sensors, it's got, if I want to turn it on, it's got electric lane assist where it will try to pick the best spot in the lane for you to be in, which is usually right on top of the zipper on a 4-lane road. And it drives like a rookie Swift driver most of the time. I'm sorry, Swift, I couldn't help it. You poor guys, you take so much crap. And they're not all bad, don't get me wrong. They're just, when you have a billboard sign on the side of your truck that says, "Sure wish I'd finished training," it's really tough not to pick on you. But I love you guys anyway. You're out there doing a job, and just be safe, But anyway, even on my car, that safety stuff is not perfected. And when you couple that onto an 80,000 pound rig, and let's just get into something right here real quick. I drive a 2023 W900L, and it has I'm going to show you here real quick. It has this thing right here. Now, as nice as that display is, it is also inconsistent in how it works. I don't believe at all that with the pounding that these trucks give all these electronics and the weather and everything else, that we're going to be a long ways away from having all this stuff perfected. So having said that, let's get back to speed limiters. So now we're going to limit everybody's speed and keep them in the right lane. Let's go back a few years. I live in Montana. I think we've talked about that before. I've mentioned it before. And probably, I want to say it was around 2014, maybe, somewhere right around in there. It's been a few years back, almost a decade now. But they upped the speed limit to 80 miles an hour. And I go to church with a guy who's actually a state senator, one of our state representatives. And I got to talking to him at a men's breakfast one day, and I was like, "Hey, I see you got that 80 mile an hour speed limit pass." He goes, "Oh yeah, that's the greatest thing ever, man." He said, "People are super happy about that. They can get across Montana now in 10 hours instead of, 14 or 12 or whatever, and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Why didn't you raise the truck speed limit?" "Well, we did. We raised it to 70. And I went, "Okay. You still have a 10 mile an hour difference between cars and trucks, just like you did when it was 75 and 65. You haven't changed anything." And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, here's the deal." I said, "Let's face it. The majority of people in Montana, when the speed limit was 65, or 75 rather, for cars, were running 85 and 90 anyway. Now you bumped it up to 80. They really are going to run 85 and 90. I mean, I've been going down the road in my Subaru and my pickup, either one at 85 miles an hour, and get my doors blown off by half a dozen cars in about a 30-mile stretch. Now you got trucks that are still running at 75. And the speed limit's 70, but, they'll give you 5 over, usually. And you still have that 10 to 15 mile an hour speed difference. I said, "Why didn't you leave the speed at 75, bump the truck speed to 75 and get rid of the split speed limit on the 2-lane highways, which is an even bigger problem than it is on the interstate, because now you're on a 2-lane, and it was bad enough having everybody trying to pass you when the speed limit was 60, and now it's 65, but the cars are running 70, and you still have a 10-mile-an-hour speed difference. Now, if they make this mandatory to where everybody is governed at a set speed and the trucks all run the same speed, can you just imagine the traffic issues that are going to happen? And I hope they do. If they get this passed, I pray every 65-mile-an-hour governed truck in the country runs 5, 6, 7 abreast all the way across the country, blocking up traffic just as far as they can go. Of course, we're going to look bad when we do it, but maybe it'll get a point across. I'm not sure. Drivers, I don't know how much you guys do this. I do write letters to my senators and our governor in Montana. And I've had the opportunity, as I stated in my 11 and 14 rule video, I've had the opportunity to speak to some people at the FMCSA, and I have a contact that actually I worked with quite a bit at my last job, who is like one of the top guys with the FMCSA for the West Coast. And he is right there with us. He thinks this mandatory speed limiter thing and all this stuff is just absolutely asinine. He's an old, he grew up out here in the West, grew up in a family that had logging trucks and trucking, and he agrees. It's just dumb. But he says the problem with it is convincing those who actually have the power to wield the pen that it's dumb. And it's all about money. It's all about money. And I can guarantee you, I think if you followed the money, it would go back to companies like Swift and Knight and Old Dominion and whoever else, all these big companies out there that don't like the competition. They want an even playing field. And this is just me speculating, but I'm pretty certain that I'm on point here. If everybody's even, then nobody stands out. Being an owner-operator and leased to a small outfit, we do a lot of stuff that the big companies just will not touch. And, it's good because the freight gets moved when it needs to get moved, where it needs to get moved to, on time. I used to, when I pulled a flatbed, I used to haul out of USG down in Phoenix. And I can remember the company that I was leased to, we acquired the USG mud account from Swift because they would load 8, 10, 12 trailers there at USG in a day. They'd send them to a yard and even get them out of town, like over to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then they would forget they're there. 4, 5, 6, 7 days. And USG's finally calling, going, "Hey, where's our trailer?" I don't know. Let me find out. Oh, well, I guess we probably better get a truck under that and get it delivered, huh? We came in. It was a relatively large company. I mean, it's not large like that. I would say even at this point, there's still only probably around 500 trucks total. But to me, that's a pretty good sized company. Excuse me. They got that contract, and it literally, when we would go into load, it would say right on the bills, absolutely no Swift trucks. Sorry, Swift, you're getting picked on today. But it's not your fault. It's Jerry Moyez's fault. It's everybody in that company high up that's, just making it what it is. It's not the driver's fault. You guys you need a job, and you're doing what you can do. So, and my hat's off to you. But when there's no way to stand out, it makes it an even playing field. Then the rates can sit flat and never go up for anybody, no matter what, your performance isn't going to mean jack squat. And road safety, in my opinion, will not improve until we, and there's where I'm going to go with this a little bit, and you guys chime in the comments, please, and maybe we'll have another video. And training. You know, I grew up in this business. I learned to drive when I was really quite young. My dad, when I was about 12 years old, we stopped on the way to go unload a load of cows up north of Spokane, where I grew up. And he set the brakes, got out of the truck, and he goes, "Get over here." And I said, "What for?" He says, "If you're going to run around with me, you're going to learn how to drive. You keep talking about how you want to drive a truck, get over here, and we'll start learning." So that's where my journey started. And man, what a blessing. What an absolute blessing that was to have, you know, the one guy that I looked up to the most, my dad, teaching me what he knew. But not everybody has that. We have so many people getting into this industry that have got absolutely this much knowledge of trucks, trucking, everything. And maybe they watched a few episodes of Freight Wars on the Discovery Channel or whatever channel that was on, and went, "Oh yeah, I can do that. That's easy. No problem. I'll just go buy a truck and a trailer and take off." The government's trying to mandate some training hours, but when you have places like in Indiana, or in Illinois rather, where that state has just basically gave a giant middle finger to the federal government and said, "We're going to give whoever we want a driver's license, regardless whether they can speak English or not, and no matter how much training they have," and it's a recipe for disaster. So my thought is, and this is very difficult because it's a big thought, and if it has more than 2 words in it, I'm an old truck driver, you know, thoughts can be hard. But there needs to be mandatory minimum training. There is a need for driving schools that are quality. Now, I did go to a driving school back in 1991. The only reason I did that is because when I got out of the Marine Corps and I tried to get a job driving for somebody else, I had no verifiable experience. I had plenty of experience working for my dad and driving all around the Northwest, but I had zero verifiable because it was my dad I was working for. And nobody wanted to touch that. So I went to a driving school that at that time was 9 weeks long. We were 2 weeks in the classroom, straight. Didn't go out and get in a truck. We were 2 weeks in the classroom. Third week we were split half between the classroom, half between the yard. And then the last 6 weeks was nothing but driving and backing, daytime and nighttime. And the instructors we had were amazing. Every one of them guys that worked for that outfit had to have a minimum of 20 years driving experience. And these guys were good. I mean, they were really good. They were great teachers. Lots of knowledge there, man. I think we had like 9 instructors at over 20 years apiece. I mean, you do the math, dude. There was over 200 years worth of experience tied up in all those guys. Some had pulled flatbed, some had pulled tanker, lowboy. Couple guys that had pulled reefer and dry van most of their career. There was no livestock haulers, which they found a lot of delight in picking on me because that was my background. But when we came out of that school, we all had, in that month, close to 2,000 miles driving under our belts in that 6 weeks. You know, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but man, compare that to most of these driving schools. You're lucky if you get 200 in 4 weeks. And it's just enough to get you to pass your test to get your CDL. That's pathetic. And then they go to a company like Swift or Warner or England or whoever, and they go with a trainer, a quote trainer, for 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. But that trainer only has to have 6 months experience. How much do you think that, and forgive me, all you guys that are out there training with less than a year experience, but how much do you really think you know? You haven't even been through 4 full seasons of weather yet, most of you. I mean, I can look back and at a year, I did not consider myself a professional. I still considered myself a snot-nosed rookie. I've been at it now, we're going on 33 years that I've been, total driving a truck. And I've been a trainer. It's a hard job. It's kind of thankless, really, because the companies just expect you to get those guys out of your truck and get them on the road so they can run their own truck and they can make money off of them. But if you never learn anything, or you learn things, bad things from somebody who doesn't know that they have bad habits, it's again a recipe for disaster. I think instead of focusing on all of this safety equipment and the electronics and the camera mirrors and the forward-facing radar and the stability control and everything else, I think we really need to put an emphasis on all these big companies on training. If you're going to hire drivers and make money from the government to put them to work for you because they're brand new, and you're going to take them and put them out on the road, then you have the onus to train them and train them properly. Not just to do the job mediocrely and just get there. I mean, this guy that was backing in next to me is a prime example, flipping a U-turn route here right out in front of my truck without even any awareness of where his trailer was. And there was no need for the U-turn. He came in a way that he could have just backed into a spot, but he went past me, did a U-turn, flipped another U-turn, and came back over here. That's just screams inexperienced. And he's out there on the road in a $200,000 plus combination piece of equipment, careening down the highway at 65, 70, 80, however fast, whatever his truck may be governed at or not, at 80,000 pounds. And your family is on the road with them. Speed limiters don't help that. All this safety warning stuff, maybe not. But again, these are all just my opinion, guys. It's just my thoughts. Whether you agree with me or not, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong if you disagree. Unless I can see a valid point, then I'll bring up what I think. But speed limiters are not going to help the situation. They're going to make things even worse. And I guess where I was going with this is make sure you're writing letters, man, and be respectful when you write those letters. Don't throw a bunch of expletives in there and sound like a bunch of drunk truck drivers, sailor mechanics. Be respectful. We have, again, a real problem with public perception in this industry, and it comes a lot with the fact that some of us are so passionate about what we do that we forget that we're dealing with people on the other end. And if we come across just as belligerent and ignorant, the first thought in their mind is those guys are just freaking knuckle dragger monkeys anyway, and they don't have an understanding of the way things really are. When in fact, in over 30 years in this business, I've met people with more degrees and more letters behind their last name than is in the alphabet. Some very smart people out here on the road. There's a lot of super smart people that barely have a high school education out here driving a truck. It's just where they ended up at. I have no college education. I went to high school. I barely graduated. I went in the Marine Corps. I have an electronics degree. I got out of the Marine Corps, got straight into driving a truck. I went to school to be an auto mechanic right out of high school. So I've got some education. And then in 2009, I took a little bit of time off. My wife was sick and took a whole bunch of office stuff in college, all the Excel and Microsoft Word and Outlook and all the PowerPoint and everything. And, so I have a good understanding of that and office software and things, but I'm by no means the smartest guy in the world, but I've got a lot of experience under my belt. And I think that's the biggest problem. We don't have the right people representing us to the government. I've seen some videos with a couple guys that just, they're amazing at what they do, but there's just a couple of them. You know, I want to say at the last numbers, there's close to 1.5 million truck drivers in this country now. Those are huge numbers, guys. That's, and you know, and almost, what, 10% of the number of people that voted for our president. We're not going to get into that side of things because that could really stir up a whole bunch of emotion, but there's a lot, man. There's a lot of us out here, you know. So let's make our voices heard. If you live in a state where your state representatives are really pushing for that speed limiter, vote them out. Send them a letter respectfully telling them that if they don't change their mind, you are not voting for them. And vote. You know, we do mail-in ballots. I've done absentee ballots for years because of being a truck driver and not being home all the time. And I did absentee ballots even when I was home all the time because it was easier than trying to remember to get down to the convention center on election day. But I've kind of strayed off topic here a little bit, and I apologize. But speed limiters, I hate them. I think it's a horrible idea. I think these companies that govern their trucks at a slow speed, trying to save fuel and be safe for whatever it is they're doing, I think they need to do a better job of training their drivers and the importance of driving safely and driving correctly, rather than limit their speed and throw a bunch of safety garbage on the trucks. It just adds a whole nother level of expense and maintenance problems that we really don't need in this industry anymore. These trucks are so complicated now that it's ridiculous. You know, I miss the simpler times, the mechanical engines, even the first electronic engines back in the early 90s all the way up through about 2002. Some of the best engines we ever had. Trucks were reliable. They didn't break down. Everything was fairly easy to work on. Most guys, and that's another topic for another discussion, is but people not knowing how their trucks work and what they do. So anyway, man, I love you guys. Thank you again so much for the positive support on the 11 and 14 rule video. I had no idea the kind of response I would get. And, you know, the last I checked, it was like somewhere in the neighborhood of 60,000 views on that video. And, you know, I was shocked when it hit 200, to tell you the truth. So thank you for your support. Please, you know, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll try to put out as much as I can when I can. You know, I'm busy. I go in spurts. I'll have 2 or 3, 4 days where we're super busy, just slammed running balls to the wall. And then I'll have a day where I'm sitting around doing nothing. Like right now, I got to wait until this evening to get loaded. So I thought I would throw this up here. But anyway, take care, everybody. Keep the shiny side up, greasy side down. You know, do it like Pruitt used to do it, and all those good old trucker sayings. And we'll catch you on the flip side, everybody. Take care. Happy New Year, and be safe.